topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good morning. It is wonderful to be here with you because it's Tuesday morning, and I love being with you because you are awesome. So just want to share that it is very close to Valentine's Day. I want to share that thank you. Thank you for all the love and support you have given to our show over these past years. And I want to share that our whole team, we love you too, because without you, the audience, without you, the show would not be possible. You are the soul of our show. So thank you for being part of our family. We love you and we wish you a beautiful Valentine's Day and a wonderful year that brings you joy and love. So one of the things that we always share that we want you to become influencers. We want you to have wonderful life. And how can you do that? So one of the easiest ways is to get two of our books. One is Expert to Influencer, and the another one is Entrepreneur's Garden. And not only that, you also get to be part of our bigger system and our family and our movement where we are taking partial proceeds and giving it out to kiva.org and helping entrepreneurs all across the globe. So it goes all the way through. It's a win-win situation. So thank you for being part of our family, and remember to keep that kindness circle going. Let's bring on our guest.
Yes, good morning. I'm honored to be here and looking forward to sharing with you on Beyond Confidence.
Oh, thank you. It's a joy to have you here, Paul. So Paul, tell us if you recall a moment from your childhood that is, that stayed with you for the rest of your life, or even if it was a person that left a mark on you.
Yes, and thank you for asking. One of the things and moments that I remember, I was the age of 10, and my parents were both factory workers in North Carolina, and they started a community grocery store. So they worked in the day. My older sister and I came home from school, and I was designated the individual who would open the store up. So that started my work journey, and I consider it to be an unpaid intern for 5 years working in Vann's grocery and seafood market. And that's really how I got my start. And it left a mark on me because I really didn't know at the time that it was actually preparing me for business, for academics, for a professional career. And so I would have to say that that was the time frame, the age of 10. So I've been working for a few years here.
Well, that is actually wonderful, because when families come together, you're also learning that beautiful experience of families working together for that shared goal, and which is, as we talk in leadership, right, the whole team coming together. And then also bonding. You're seeing your parents in action, and what a beautiful way to see them and setting example for you.
Absolutely. And what I learned from that experience is that I knew that both of my parents had a very strong work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom worked for the company for 28 years, my dad for 27. So they would leave home every morning, going to the same company and coming back. And so that's about 55 years of work there. And I'm one of 10 children. Perhaps that's the deep mark there. So I have 5 sisters and 4 brothers. So my older sister and I took care of our younger siblings. And that also taught me quite a bit about leadership as well, being able to help the younger siblings to get some discipline, listening, and kind of stand in line. Because if they got in trouble, my older sister and I were in trouble. So,
Yes, definitely. So that is very powerful what you're sharing is, and as times have changed,
mhm.
discipline is looked upon as something very, very negative. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that discipline is really needed, and some of the more successful people are very disciplined. Not so much that someone is really keeping them in alignment, but more so being disciplined and putting in the time to study, to learn, to acquire knowledge, discipline and going to work and coming back every day. That's a lot of discipline. And then discipline in terms of how we lead our personal lives. I think that's very important. People think, well, personal life, how are you a leader? Well, everyone has to lead their life. And so we're all leaders from that sense because the decisions that we make in life always have consequences and we always want to make the best decisions possible. And that's why that's important from a personal standpoint.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right. And when you talk about decisions, so many times what happens is that people get caught in decision paralysis and their consistent behaviors, which leads to status quo because there's friction when you're thinking about that change. So as you talked, you grew up in a lot of discipline. You
Mhm.
saw your parents being very, very disciplined. So as you grew up, did you have a time, especially in teenage and continuing to learn and grow your knowledge when you experience that friction?
Yes, well, I'll tell you, Divya, I'm going to share the story with you and everyone listening and watching. And it happened after my 5th year of working in our store. And I went to my father and I asked him, hey, I'll continue to work in the store, but I want to play football because I was kind of running out of time to do that in high school. And all my friends, my family members were playing football at the high school. And my dad said, well, no, if you play football, you can't stay here anymore, stay at the house anymore. And I said, oh,
Hmm.
okay. So I said, I'll go to stay with my grandmother, your mother. And so that's exactly what I did. And the first thing my grandmother said, she said, Paul, I want you to play on the football team. Because she had heard about the fact that if I didn't work in the store, I couldn't play football. So I went and played football. But that was the moment that actually my life changed. And it changed because I had to depend on myself, helping with my grandmother. She was getting up there in age. But what did it teach me? I had a coach. I actually had my first coach was a football coach. I had teammates. There was leadership. There was discipline, and we were all a part of the community. And I think that that's very important as well because we were just not playing for the school but for the entire community. So we competed against other schools: Chapel Hill, Durham, Roxborough, Oxford, North Carolina. We competed with all of those schools and all of those locations, and that really taught me something about teamwork, how to get along, how to have one purpose, have a mission, have a goal and expectations. And we had a very good team. And
Hmm.
and I remember my last game was played at Bowman Gray Stadium there in Winston-Salem when we had one of the state playoff games. But that led to me opening up as an individual, and I could see that there was more to just working in the store. And it actually led to me getting more education because then my cousin had received a scholarship at East Carolina University to play football. He was very successful. He's in the Hall of Fame there. And I saw what he was doing and I wanted to do something similar. And basically what happened, it positioned me to go out, and my parents didn't have any money to give me to go to college. So I got a job and I earned money in the summer. I was a first generation graduate from high school, and I worked the entire 4 years of college. And I was at Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina. And then I was cross enrolled at North Carolina State University, and I went through a 2 year ROTC program. So the leadership started kicking in, but it was all based on one platform, and it was a platform of education. And one of my great great aunt, she had taught school in Henderson, North Carolina for about 35 years. And she told me, she said, Paul, if you get your education, you can see the world. And she was right. I was able to see the world. And so after I graduated from Shaw University with a business degree, I also was a distinguished graduate of ROTC, and I was commissioned a second lieutenant in the United States Air Force. So I was a military officer. And then I went on and I served over 20 years, and I retired as a lieutenant colonel. But it was the education is what took me to the next level, because without the education, I would not have known the things to do. But I was collaborating with other people, mentors, and I had a support system. So there were people advocating on my behalf to help me get promotions and more.
So powerful.
Yeah.
So first of all, thank you for your services, Paul, because it's
I'm
important
honored.
to recognize and appreciate our heroes and sheroes.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
And what I'm hearing is that when there was friction, you just didn't succumb to it. You just didn't say like, oh, situation is bad. You know what? I can't do anything about it. And that's the piece we want to share with you, that yes, situation can be bad, but you have a say in it.
Sure.
It's not that the choice has been squeezed out of you by the situation or by anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to remember, you don't know how other people have been raised, what they've been going through.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know what is determining the lens through which they look at life. So it's
Yes.
important that you create that lens, that you look at your life and you design your life. And you found an alternative, and listen, where you have reached. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I think that was the turning point actually for my life. And I love my father. I know he loved me too, but maybe I was just a good employee, unpaid intern, that he didn't really want to bring anyone else in, but it worked out in the end. And these are the things that were happening, Dee. Our team did very well. And that time it was not broadcast on television, but it was actually broadcast on the radio. So I played on the defensive side of the team, and they would say tackle by Vann, touchdown by Vann. I get a fumble, running in for a 52-yard touchdown. And so my father is actually hearing his name on the radio. And so guess who was my number one fan?
Your dad?
Yeah. I said, Dad, no, you cannot be my fan. No, actually, I said I knew that he liked that because his coworkers would talk to him about that, and the neighbors, and it was a big thing for him.
Of course. And
and I
here's the thing. Parents do the best they can.
Mhm.
And so many times, young ones, and I know it's hard when parents say no to you.
Sure.
They're doing the best they can. And sometimes, yeah, things do go wrong.
Mhm.
What helps is looking things from their perspective and
Exactly.
making sure that
Mhm.
you are looking at your life with
Yes,
your perspective and seeing what you could do. As you mentioned that you rested the responsibility on yourself, Paul.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So as you continued your journey, can you tell us, what lessons did you learn
Okay.
from being a military officer and as you were jumping through the ladder?
First of all, I absolutely love the United States Air Force. Even though I've been retired for 21 years, I'm all Air Force. If I were to bleed, it would be blue, just like the uniform, blue. But what I learned is that the United States Air Force really cared about me. And I want to explain this is that the leadership allowed me to be me. And I could not ask for anything more than that, because once they allowed me to be me, and people have this concept about the military from what they see in the movies or what they see on television, but it's not like that at all. They're real people, right? And so they would ensure that I always got more training. So I worked in the financial field, budget, cost analysis, budget analysis, uh, financial management, and I managed multi-billion dollar projects and programs, acquisition programs. So I worked with defense contractors when I was the age of 21, maybe. And so I would fly out to California, Chicago, Boston, and I would lead a team of about 12 people. And we would go out and assess the contractors to see if he could perform the project and provide us with what we needed. And it was about a $3.3 billion contract. So I led 12 consultants to California. And in the end, we had to turn them down in terms of being able to provide that. And I reported to the two-star general, but sir, we cannot go forward because they would overrun the budget. They couldn't get it on schedule. They didn't have enough personnel associated with that particular contract that they had to for the proposal. And so we had to turn it down, but we saved the taxpayers $3.3 billion. And that's how we viewed it.
Wow. And and that's such a powerful lesson, because so many times what happens is that people are looking at paper applications, which of course now, you can hire a consultant, make the application look great, and you interview them. But the key is going into the field. And I remember this, not sure whether I had read it or somebody told me that, is that if you're interviewing a candidate, especially if they're going to be playing a crucial role in your company,
Sure.
interview them in 3 different environments.
Mm-hmm.
And that just stuck with me for so long that, you will get to know about the personality of the individual. And similarly, that's what you did over here. You
Yeah.
went down, you checked out, what were their constraints and the performance and all that. So that's powerful. Is it done now, or this is a thing of the past?
This is a thing of the past, and I think the big lesson that I took from that particular experience, because a lot was on the line, there were jobs on the line, the
Hmm.
community in which the corporation was existing was on the line, and but what I learned was this: is that there are times when you're going to have to make hard choices and tough decisions, and that was one of those times. But what I had to my advantage was the fact that my leadership trusted me to go out and do this. And I was a young man. I had hair back then, Divya. And so it ended up being an interesting process. But over the years, what the Air Force did is they ensured that I attended leadership school. So we had what's called Squadron Officer School, which is an introductory leadership school for young officers as part of being an airman for air power. And so I went through that program at Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama. And then I had my Air Command and Staff College, which is the second level, a mid-career leadership school. And I attended that program as well and completed that. And the last school was Air War College. But when Air War College came up, I didn't complete the program, even though I attended probably 3/4 of the program because I retired. And but I had been developed over the years. And so people ask, well, how come you didn't finish it? Well, I was at the Pentagon for 12 consecutive years. And during that time, I lost 13 family members, including both of my parents and my grandparents. And so I lost a lot of people, and it put a lot of stress on me. And I figured, well, I've been in over 20 years, and it's time for me to step down, which no one could believe it. Paul Vann, you're leaving, you're retiring? And so it was a big deal with everyone, but I was able to do that. And over the course of the years, I ended up working for a member of Congress as well. So there's a program called the Capitol Hill Fellowship Program, and I applied for the program, and I actually went through a competition, and I was selected. So I worked for a member of Congress who worked in the U.S. House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. So I worked for a member of Congress for a year, and that was another just amazing experience, working both the House side and the Senate side of Congress. And so that was a very unique experience as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. So just to kind of like, rewind back a little bit.
Sure.
So as you were talking that your leadership trusted you to fly out and check it out. But let's say somebody does not have time or the resources or the finances to do it. What would you say is a good way to figure out the person that you're contracting is
Mhm.
able to do the job that you're giving them?
Well, what we do, we go out, we have what's called a cost performance criteria, systems criteria, and it's a program, and we check every area. I was mentioning just a few earlier. We would check to see if they, in fact, can get that project within the schedule, because that's the most important thing. And it wasn't just for the Air Force, it was for the Army, the Navy, and the Marines. It was a inter-service program. And then we would look at, well, would there be a cost overrun? And that was our main concern. And then did they have enough personnel there? And they didn't. So we talking personnel, we're talking engineers, we're talking logistics managers, we're talking the particular contracting experts that they would have, and then the people actually building the physical product that we needed. And then we had to look at the data. Will the data provide us with information to help us to get this completed within time? And so those were the areas, but it's called Cost Control Schedule Systems Criteria, CSCSC, another military acronym. But that system would tell us whether or not they would be able to fulfill that mission. And part of what we did, we would fly. I was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, and we would fly to Chicago, talk to one of the subcontractors there, 2 or 3 days. We'd fly to Boston for about 3 or 4 days, talk to the subcontractors there, and then we'd fly out to Los Angeles, because those were the primary contract in California, and then the subcontractors in Chicago as well as in Boston. And so that was all done in about a 2-week period of time, and then we get the report back to the general. But we could tell whether or not they could perform that work. And that system actually is still in place in how we evaluate them when we look at acquisition purchases. Absolutely.
So what I'm hearing is that, like, have your systems in place based on your experience
Yes.
and making sure that they check boxes
Yes.
and
That they can.
have hindsight as foresight as much as you can. So
Yes.
then you did share, how your life journeyed through, even, going through politicians'
Yeah.
life. So how was that experience and what did you learn?
Divya, I tell you, that is the most powerful question I've heard this year. Number one, because we know that right now there's a lot of dysfunction on Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
But in the time that I was there, it wasn't like that. You could actually work and collaborate with other sides of the aisle. And I would say that what the experience was like for me is that it opened up a whole new world to me. I worked with constituents quite a bit. In fact, when they tallied up the year that I was on the Hill working for the member of Congress, I had maybe 1,200 constituent letters that went out. So I engaged with people all the time. I would work with all services, whether it was the Army, Air Force, Navy, Air Force, Marines. I worked with each commander for that. I worked with the Department of Veterans Affairs, because that was part of the House Armed Services Committee. And then I'll give you an example of one experience I had. And I had one of the congressman's constituents came in, and his son was an Air Force fighter pilot. And the son was refusing to fly on a particular mission in Europe. And so they came to me and said, well, will my son be able to remain in service or not? And so I did some research. I came back. I said, sir, Mayor, your son will not be able to fly again because he's a conscientious objector, meaning that he's refusing to fly. Typically, you can refuse based on religious reasons or something of that nature. But in his case, his girlfriend, who was also in the Air Force, told him, if you fly on that mission, I'm not going to marry you. The ultimatum.
Oh, wow.
And what happened, he refused to fly, which meant he lost his wings, his aviation wings. And you know what she did after he did that? She left him.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. And
Oh
I
no,
so
that's
I
such a sad story.
Yeah, she didn't really like him, I think is really what it was, and but for him
Oh,
to lose all of that training and service to country, and I'm pretty sure even today he's probably having a hard time because that's always in your record. Basically, it's a dishonorable discharge, is what it
mm,
is. Yeah, he'll never be able to fly in the military anymore. And so that was one experience. And then I had some experiences where I talked to all the veteran service organizations like the Disabled Veterans of America, the Enlisted Association of America, the National Guard Association. I talked to all of those representatives, and we were trying to find ways of how we can make the life of military people and families better.
mm-hmm.
And that was very important. And I did draft language. I went to the Library of Congress and I drafted some language because the member's constituent had lost a family member. He was a veteran, and they have the military funeral honor detail where people go out with the 21 gun salute. You can only get it right one time, and no one showed up to perform that service.
Oh,
And so that meant the member of Congress really took a beating on that in the media and in the community. And so I drafted up some language. I gave it to a lawyer, and he put it in the legal lease, and it actually ended up becoming a bill and then law. And
oh wow.
so it's House Resolution 2283. It's to help and assist with military funeral. So I met everyone in the funeral business. Something I
Yeah,
never thought I'd do, but it's something very important. And so
it
I
is
had
very important. Yeah.
absolutely, and so I had experiences such as that, and I would actually go on the floor with the member of Congress, and so I would be the one to help him to decide what position he should take on a certain military issue. But
Mm,
all along, we were trying to get more aircraft, more Navy ships, more Army tanks. We needed more, increase the pay for them. And then again, what a lot of people don't understand is that when it comes to a member of the military, we see them in uniform. Oftentimes, we don't see who's behind him or her. That meaning the family. But
mm-hmm.
the family is very important. And years later, after I retired, I actually worked in military family readiness and military family support, in showing ways when the member is on a deployment, let's say to Afghanistan, Iraq, and we would have to help the family in case they ran into problems with their mortgage or if they ran into problems with the children in school, all manner of things. So I did a lot of work with that as well.
Yeah, it's important because when
Yes.
our heroes and sheroes go out there, or even if they're in training, it doesn't matter. It is the
Right.
families also part of that
Also,
because they make several sacrifices. Not
absolutely.
only they're moving from one base to another, and even kids, right? They've made friends, and now all of a sudden you've just made friends, and now you're into a new town. And so there's so much
Mhm.
behind the scenes that we don't see. So, as you move through this, right, let's take all these learnings and how would you say we could bring excellence in leadership in
Mhm.
our corporations?
Well, that's just my favorite question. Thank you, Divya. And the way I sum it all up is that leadership, in and of itself, comes down to influence, being able to influence people to do things that need to be done and take projects that need to be completed. And the only way we can do that is through people. And so, for example, if we have a leader with a title of president, CEO, vice president HR, we need them to be able to develop other leaders within the organization. And the question is why? Well, 70% of employers state that all employees of the business should receive leadership development training. And the reason why is because it helps to maximize the human potential. It's not enough for just a leader to be trained and to receive the leadership development, but also for the manager and the employees as well. And oftentimes people don't look at a manager or an employee as a leader, but they are. But no one has ever told them that. And the reason why they are is because the manager is responsible for the entire workflow for the organization. Because in that workflow, that's where the leader with the title or the CEO's vision, his particular goals or her goals and expectations are for the company. And the overall goal of a business is to increase the business performance, whether it's through sales of products, whether it's through automation and different programs and projects such as that. So when we look at leadership, we need to have an influential leader in there. And once we get the manager and employees trained up, and the training should be standardized for all three, not only at the headquarters level, but at the regional office as well as the local office for the company. And what does this do? It gives the company a competitive advantage because they are all trained up. It increases the return on investment in the talent management that they have. It helps to retain the best employees that they have. And it also increases the valuation of the company, meaning that if that company were to be bought out, then and they would look at the people who are working there, uh, and they state that they're all trained. They all have leadership training because it's the number one skill that they need. And that valuation of the company will actually increase. And
Mm.
that's why it's important for that to happen. And people ask, well, how can you prove this? It's easy to prove because we have a list of companies, the best companies to work for. That's what they're doing. In other words, if it's a really good company, they have the leadership training in place. And they have as many people trained up as they can, and from that leadership development side of the house. And so I do have what I state in my book, the three-pronged approach to becoming a leader of influence. And I could share that with people right now if you would like to.
Oh, yeah, we'd love to hear that.
Okay, fantastic. One of the first things that people should do on the first day a person is hired is to ensure that you include them in all the meetings, meet everyone at the organization, find out what the philosophy is for the leader with the title, CEO or the president, because that person is a leader. And one of the things that you have to do is what we call continuous study. For example, when I was in the Air Force, and I had left the Air Force for 2 years, Divya. A lot of people don't know that, but I left and I was recruited by Mobile Oil Company. So when I came back in, to a certain extent, I needed to be retrained because I had went out to corporate. But what happened, it comes down to continuous study. So one day I'm walking down the hall in the Pentagon, happy to be back in the Air Force Blue, and I lost my vision. And people ask, well, how did you lose your vision, Paul?
Huh.
There was this gentleman walking down the hall, and he had 4 stars on his shoulder, and it was General Colin Powell. And I was like shocked by the light. I was like, oh, that's Colin Powell. So Colin Powell is someone I and so many others had admired for all these years. So I would purchase his books. I would study him and other leaders in the Pentagon and corporate world as well. So continuous study is the first prong in that three-pronged approach to becoming a leader of influence. And so you want to study continuously. And it's no substitute for leadership development, but you want to continuously study your craft, your skills. I was mentioning before that Air Force put me in so many schools, and I became a certified financial manager over the course of those years because they continuously put me in the Air Force Institute of Technology and all manner of courses. So continuous study is very important. The second prong is to actually give the employees responsibility. So the CEO, instead of them doing the work, have your manager to do that work, to give them some experience. It's almost like what we had in the military, a shadow program. So you put a manager with the CEO, with her, and the women is the leader, and shadow them, and then build them up. Then what you want to do is ensure that you put them on projects that's going to give them that leadership skills that they need, because everyone doesn't come to organization with leadership skills. They don't know how to lead because no one has taught them. So part of that process is to give them that one-on-one experience, so they, in essence, become a mentor for them. And then the third prong is to actually attend leadership workshops and leadership training, because that really completes the process. And so you have your 3 prongs. So they would take different leadership development workshops and only have one provide that because you want a standardized program. What a lot of companies are doing, they're going out to get different contractors to deliver the leadership development, but it should be one. And that way, everybody's on the same sheet of music, if you will, from a leadership perspective. So it's the continuous study, providing those leadership experiences. And people can get some of this working as a volunteer. For example, if they want to get some experience, find a nonprofit that you like to work with. Or after I retired, I worked for the governor of Maryland, and we worked on immigration issues for people who were from different countries in the state of Maryland. They already had all the paperwork to be a citizen, but a lot of things they were not aware of, like banking. Some people come from certain countries, they don't trust banking. And so we talked to them, this is banking. Here's going to get a mortgage. A lot of people don't get mortgages. Say, for example, if a person is from a Arabic country, they don't do regular banking like mortgages like we do here in the United States. They have a different types of banking. So we introduce our banking to them. And then when they're purchasing a house, or if they're in their local community. And so what we would love to do is to be able to get people and give them that training and experience. So once we do that, then we just call them their influential leader, because the people you've trained and you've given
Yeah.
experience to, it's a succession issue as well. And so if
Mm-hmm.
the president leaves, which 15 to 20% of leadership at major corporations, they go to a new job, then you'll be able to backfill that with someone you have identified as a prospective individual to lead the company or lead the business. And so that's really how that process worked. And in essence, that's what happened to me. That's
Yeah.
my experience. It was coming into the Air Force and them training me about everything, Air Force history. And so, yeah, that's how they do it. And one thing I would love to talk about is my basic training, and kind of sharing with people how that leadership aspect kind of started. I could share it just a minute. And
We are getting close to the near of our
gotcha.
wrapping up of our show, but like if you please do share it in brief.
I'll do it really quick. I had never flown on a plane before I went to basic training in Dover, Delaware. I took a Trailways bus from Raleigh, North Carolina. I got there, third week of basic training, never flown on a plane. They put us on a C5, which is the length of a football field. 2 weeks later, they flew us to Columbus, Mississippi, put us in a two-seat T-37 aircraft with an instructor pilot, and we went up 10,000 feet, and the Air Force allowed me to fly the jet for a few minutes. And that was hook, line, and sinker for me joining the Air Force. Absolutely. But I'm saying that just to say this, is that when it comes to leadership, it has a foundation that goes back several years, and in my case, decades, because you just don't come in from off the bat being a leader, because there's no born leaders.
I really like that, because it's about
Mhm.
we shape the leaders, and you are shaping them into becoming the leaders that can lead the next round of folks that are coming in. As you mentioned, it was with the continuous learning
Yes.
you are developing, and nothing so much powerful like shadowing, because you're learning in action
Yes.
and learning in experience. So, Paul, if you were to summarize like one or two things that people could take away with them and implement it starting today, what might that be?
What I would love to share with people, a couple of things I love to share with people is that, again, leaders are developed over time.
Mhm.
And again, I use that example of there's no born leader, and that's a myth. And people think, well, because a quarterback, let's say Tom Brady, who I really admire, he's a born leader. He was developed over time. In fact, when he came to the New England Patriots, he was a backup quarterback, but eventually he ended up winning 7 Super Bowls. And so people say he's a born leader. No, he was developed over time. So I want everyone to understand that a person is developed over time. And then the second part I want to share is that when we look at a leader should be a servant leader, meaning that he or she is in that leadership position with that leadership title, but they position their manager and or their employees to succeed. by giving them all the resources they need to succeed. Let's say if they're building widgets, just as an example, like we used to say in business class, and they want to exceed their sales mark for the quarter. Well, you're going to have to give them the resources to be able to do that. And so what a servant leader does is they position their entire staff to get the job done. And when they complete that job and they exceed that sales goal, then give them the credit. Leader, don't take the credit for it. Give it to those people that work for you. That's the most important aspect of that. And the number one quality of a leader I want to leave, and this is the third one, is the quality of the leader makes all the difference with the success of a company or organization. It's the success. It's their character. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely. So tell us where people can connect with you, share with us about your book.
Sure. Thank you, Divya. Thank you for asking me, and it's an honor to be here with Beyond Confidence. My book is titled Leadership is Influence. I'll just kind of show it here just a little bit. That's what it looks like. And people can get that at website www.leadershipisinfluencebook.com, or they can contact me toll free at 800-341-6719. And then by email at info@paulvannspeaks.com, and they'll be able to get me there. And I'm just elated with being alive. And so I'm doing a lot of speaking engagements and interviews and getting into new magazine articles, etc. I'm really enjoying this process. The book is really very transformative, and it has transformed my business model.
Oh, definitely. Thank you so much. It was an honor to interview you, Paul. And thank you for your services, because you gave us a lot of nuggets. And I'm sure that there are even more nuggets that will transform people in your book. So yes, definitely check it out. Thank you for joining us, Paul.
Thank you, Divya, and the Beyond Confidence audience. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you, dear audience, because without you, as we know that without you, the show would not be possible. So reach out to us. Let us know, how can we support you? How can we help you live the life you deserve and want? So, and thank you, Juan, for making the show technically possible. So be well and take care. Until next time.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.